of my life, but by gosh, I'm going to have control over this part. And fantasies help me to, you know, be able to cope. I just can't imagine how I don't know, children being abused like that is just horrific. Similarly, Hickey proposed that obsessive fantasies of torture, control of a victim, and murder function as a coping strategy, and thus the individual longs to act on it. Person suggested that murder fantasies stem from some sort of conflict with someone, and that murder can serve as a solution to certain problems. It is acting out that fantasy, acting out that need and desire to be in control. And they get that huge rush of dopamine and a feeling of contentment and positivity that they haven't had before. That's what drives them to continue doing it. Eventually, however, the fantasy is not enough to fulfill the need. Thus, when serial killers mature from their remote fantasies, their fantasies become a cognitive staging ground for actual crimes. Some fantasies include a cognitive rehearsal for sexual murder, but because of its constant repetition, the fantasy's cognitive rehearsal power diminishes, and that is when an individual seeks to act on them. This is the exact same thing that happens to people when they watch pornography. The first time someone watches pornography and is interested in it, some people are repulsed by it, and that's fine. Other people are drawn to it, and they like what they see because they're getting this feeling, they're getting this rush, this desire, and they love it. And they continue watching it, and it just ups the ante. They start out with just relatively non-violent porn, and it will typically work its way up to, horrible porn stories and situations which allow them to live out their fantasy by watching it on TV or computer or whatever. Snuff films, which are completely illegal, but they certainly happen, where people actually die in the films. Those are used quite a bit by serial killers. But when that stops becoming exciting, they become the predator. Same thing here. When the fantasy is not enough, then they mature from the remote fantasies to actual cognitive staging ground for actual crimes. For those who have an impaired prefrontal cortex, prefrontal cortex, and experience such fantasies repeatedly, it becomes additionally difficult to control behaviors, and acting upon their fantasy seems like an easy way out. Ressler, Burgess, and Douglas suggest that fantasy can be a contributing factor leading to serial killing. Moreover, if the victim does not cooperate enough or the criminal act is hindered because of unanticipated circumstances, the serial killer's fantasy is unsatisfied, leading him or her to develop a new and more violent fantasy in order to reach the same level of satisfaction. And that is that constant drive, that constant need. If they're interrupted in any way, if it didn't go the way they thought it was going to go, they back up and, readjust that fantasy and then plan it so meticulously that they are ensured they're not going to have issues, that they want to fulfill that fantasy. So, and that's a good place to stop today. So many different things that have to be present for someone to move from just a fantasy into reality. And we see that all the time. We're going to have to do this again. We're not even halfway through this. So we'll do another podcast on this sometime this week. So be looking out for that. I will give any updates on the serial killer in California. There'll be a lot more details come out, just like always, like Brian Kohberger and all of them. The longer things go, the more information that you typically get because they're constantly being studied. So we'll definitely talk about any news related to that and do another segment of this master's thesis. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you have a great week. And as always, be safe out there.